If you've ever killed a houseplant and blamed yourself, you probably chose the wrong plant. The truth is, most people walk into a garden center and get handed the same 5 species, told they're beginner friendly, and then spend 3 weeks watching them slowly fall apart, wondering what they did wrong. But what if the real beginner plants, the ones that genuinely thrive on neglect, survive low light, and forgive imperfect watering, are plants most people have never even heard of? That's exactly what this video is. We've built this list around 5 chapters, each one focused on a specific survival superpower that makes these plants uniquely forgiving. Plants that store their own water, plants that thrive in near darkness, plants so visually extraordinary that most people assume they must be impossible to keep alive. They're not. 20 plants, 5 categories. Let's start with Chapter 1. Plant 1, Aspidistra alacer, cast iron plant. Before electric lighting existed, Victorian homes were lit by gas lamps. Those gas lamps produced fumes that killed almost every houseplant brought indoors. Almost. The Aspidistra not only survived the fumes, the deep shade, and the temperature swings of 19th century parlors, it became the fashionable plant of the era. That's not a coincidence. It earned the name cast iron plant by being quite literally nearly indestructible. Today it tolerates dust, drought, irregular watering, and complete neglect for weeks at a time. And in Japan, rare variegated varieties sell for significant sums at auction. A plant that survived gaslight can absolutely survive your schedule. Plant 2, Gasteria littleworti. Almost nobody knows Gasteria, and that's exactly the problem. This South African genus is actually a better beginner plant than aloe, because unlike aloe, it doesn't stretch and lose its shape when the light gets low. Its tongue-shaped leaves are covered in raised white bumps called tubercles, which is where the cultivar name, littleworti, comes from. The genus name itself comes from the Latin word for stomach, a reference to the swollen base of its tubular flowers. It needs watering only once the soil has been completely dry for several days, and it comfortably handles temperatures anywhere from 45 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Basically any indoor environment you're already living in. Plant 3, Sansevieria cylindrica, cylindrical snake plant. Forget everything you think you know about snake plants. The cylindrical variety looks nothing like the flat-leaved version you've seen before. Its leaves grow as smooth, pointed spikes in a fan-like rosette and can reach up to 7 feet tall. Young plants can even be braided as they grow, which has made them a popular design statement in Scandinavian interiors. But the real story is what happens at night. Like all Sansevieria, this plant uses crassulacean acid metabolism. It photosynthesizes in the dark, converting CO2 to oxygen while you sleep. That's a genuine biological fact, not a marketing line. It stores water in its succulent leaves and is nearly drought-proof. It works while you rest. Plant 4, Clivia miniata, a bush lily. Clivia miniata might be the most underrated flowering houseplant on Earth. Native to the coastal forests of South Africa, it produces clusters of 10 to 20 bright orange or yellow, trumpet-shaped flowers on a single stem, with almost no encouragement. Here's the counterintuitive part. It blooms better when you don't repot it. Crowded roots actually trigger its flowering response. It needs no feeding for most of the year, develops no significant pest issues, and will sit happily in a container for 3 to 5 years without wanting to be disturbed. In China, premium yellow-flowered Clivia cultivars have sold for tens of thousands of dollars at collector exhibitions. One note, it is toxic to pets, so keep it out of reach. Plant 5, Beocarnea recurvata, Gakai, ponytail palm. Here's your first correction of the day. This is not a palm tree. It's not even remotely related to palms. Spucarnea recurvata belongs to the Asparagataceae family, so it's more closely related to agave than anything in the palm family. The secret is that dramatically swollen trunk base called a caudex, which stores enormous water reserves built up over time. In the semi-desert regions of Mexico where it originates, these plants live for hundreds of years. As a houseplant, it can go 4 to 6 weeks without water and show zero signs of stress. The cascading grass-like foliage at the top gives it its common name. But the real star is that living water tank sitting at the bottom of your pot. We're a quarter of the way through. 5 plants down, 15 to go. If you've already spotted one you want, let me know in the comments which one. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time. We cover plants like these every week. And Chapter 2 is next, and these are the ones that essentially manage their own watering. Plant 6, Carapegia woodii, Chiaxa string of hearts. The string of hearts is one of the most visually distinctive trailing plants in the world. Thin wire-like vines carry paired, heart-shaped leaves marbled in silver and dark green with deep purple undersides. But the real survival story is structural. Along those vines, you'll find small bead-like growths called corms. These are water and nutrient storage organs, essentially an emergency reserve that kicks in when watering gets irregular. Forget to water for 2 or 3 weeks? The corms compensate. And here's the bonus, those same corms can be harvested and placed on moist soil to propagate entirely new plants. No cutting tool, no rooting hormone, no expertise. Plant 7, Rhipsalis spexifera, mistletoe cactus. This is a cactus that hates direct sunlight. Let that land for a moment. Rhipsalis spexifera is the only known cactus species with a native range outside the Americas. It's found growing wild in parts of Africa and Sri Lanka, most likely carried there by birds eating its fruit. In nature, it grows as an epiphyte in dense tropical rainforest canopy, clinging to tree branches in deep shade, never touching soil. That evolutionary background means it thrives indoors in low-light environments where any other cactus would die. Its reed-like stems trail up to 6 feet. It produces tiny white pearlescent berries. It has no thorns, no spines, and it genuinely belongs in your bathroom. Plant 8, Haworthia cooperi. Haworthia cooperi evolved a solution so precise it looks engineered. At each fleshy leaf in its small rosette is tipped with a modified, nearly transparent window. A section of leaf that functions like a fiber optic channel, funneling sunlight down into the interior of the leaf where photosynthesis happens. In its native South African habitat, this plant buries itself partially underground to reduce heat and water loss, and relies entirely on those window tips to capture what light it needs. Indoors, it tolerates low light, needs watering only when fully dry, and stays compact, typically under 4 inches wide. One of the most structurally fascinating succulents you'll ever put on a desk. Plant 9, Aglaonema Siam aurora, Chinese evergreen. Most people have encountered Chinese evergreen as a forgettable office plant in the beige pot. The Siam aurora variety makes that version completely irrelevant. Buckle, its leaves emerge in vivid pink and red at the center, fading to deep green at the margins. It looks like it should require a greenhouse, not a dim apartment corner. Aglaonema species were cultivated inside dark Southeast Asian temples and monasteries for centuries specifically because they thrived where nothing else would. NASA's 1989 Clean Air study identified Aglaonema among the plants with notable filtration properties for benzene and formaldehyde. Though it's worth noting that real-world home conditions require more than a few potted plants to meaningfully filter air. Still, the biology is there. And so is the beauty. In conditions that would defeat most colorful plants. Plant 10. Zamioculcas, Zamifolia raven. Black ZZ plant. The standard ZZ'd plant is already one of the most forgiving houseplants in existence. The Raven cultivar takes everything that makes it good and adds something genuinely dramatic. Leaves that emerge bright lime green and slowly, over weeks, shift to a near black, deep purple as they mature. This means, at any given moment, your plant displays the full color spectrum from new to old, electric green new growth alongside leaves so dark they absorb light. Underground, fat potato-like rhizomes store water and nutrients so efficiently this plant has survived months without watering. In parts of East Africa, the wild ZZ grows in dry, rocky landscapes under heavy canopy, conditions that would end most houseplants immediately. 10 plants in, we're exactly halfway. If any of these have made it onto your list, drop it in the comments. I genuinely read every one. Why do you subscribe if you want to see the full plant content we put out each week? Chapter 3 is coming up, and it's built for anyone who's ever been told their home doesn't have enough light for plants. Plant 11. Scindapsus pictus exotica. Satin pothos. This is not pothos. Scindapsus pictus belongs to a completely separate genus, and the difference is immediately visible. Its leaves are matte and velvety in texture, covered in large silver-gray splotches that look like hammered pewter. Here's the paradox that makes it perfect for low-light rooms. Those silver markings intensify in lower light conditions, rather than fading. The plant evolved on Southeast Asian jungle floors, where light filters through multiple canopy layers, and it developed mechanisms to maximize every photon it receives. The result is a trailing plant that looks better in a dim hallway than it does in a bright window, tolerates drought, dry air, and the kind of passive neglect that destroys most trailing varieties. Plant 12. Asplenium nidus, Gigantean bird's nest, fern. Most ferns punish beginners for existing. The moment humidity drops, the moment watering gets slightly off, crispy brown tips appear on every delicate leaflet and the whole plant starts to look like it gave up. Asplenium nidus is categorically different. Its broad, glossy, undivided fronds are smooth, no fragile, feathery structure to damage. The central rosette forms a bowl shape, like a bird's nest, which in the wild collects falling debris and organic matter that naturally feeds the plant from above. Indoors, it genuinely thrives in bathroom humidity, but tolerates average indoor air far better than any other fern on the market. Water around the edge of the pot, never into the central cup, and it will outlast every other fern you've tried. Plant 13. Peperomia argyraea, watermelon. Peperomia. The leaves of Peperomia argyraea are striped in alternating green and silver, curved along the leaf surface to mimic almost exactly the rind of a watermelon, right down to the red-pink stem. Despite appearances, it is entirely unrelated to watermelons. It's native to South American rainforests and belongs to Piperaceae, the pepper family, one of the largest flowering plant families on Earth. Its semi-succulent leaves store water, making it tolerant of inconsistent watering. It stays compact, rarely exceeding 12 inches. It requires no pruning, and it propagates from a single leaf placed flat on moist soil. Nature designed this pattern entirely on its own. You just have to not overwater it. Plant 14. Oxalis triangularis, Conras purple shamrock. This plant moves, not metaphorically, literally moves on a daily schedule. Oxalis triangularis exhibits nyctinisty. Its deep purple, triangular leaves fold completely shut at night and reopen each morning in response to light. This movement is driven by pressure changes in specialized cells at the base of each leaf called pulvini. the same biological mechanism behind the famous sensitive plant, but operating on a 24-hour rhythm rather than responding to touch. The effect in a home environment is quietly mesmerizing. And the survival part, it grows from underground corms that allow the plant to go dormant and reemerge. Meaning, even if you manage to overwater it and it collapses, it's almost certainly not dead. Plant 15. Tradescantia zebrina. Inch plant. In certain light, the leaves of Tradescantia zebrina have a metallic sheen that shifts as you move around them. Silver and deep purple foliage that catches and refracts light the way a hummingbird's throat feathers do. This iridescence is structural, not pigment-based. Microscopic surface formations on the leaf diffract light differently depending on the viewing angle. It's one of the fastest growing houseplants in existence. Trailing vines can extend several inches in a single week, which is exactly how it got the name inch plant. It roots from cuttings in water within days. It tolerates low watering, average humidity, and a wide range of light levels. And in tropical ecosystems around the world, it is naturalized after escaping gardens, which tells you everything you need to know about how hard this plant is to stop. 15 plants down, 5 left. And chapter 5 is where things get genuinely unusual. These are the plants that challenge every assumption about what an indoor plant can look like. Before we get there, and if this video has been useful, subscribe and leave a comment. It helps more people find this content, and I read every reply. Plant 16. Hoya carnosa, Crimson Queen. Wax plant. The flowers of a Hoya carnosa look like they were sculpted from porcelain. Perfectly formed, star-shaped, waxy clusters that people frequently mistake for artificial. The Crimson Queen variety adds creamy, white variegated edges to deep green leaves, making it visually striking even before it blooms. Once established, Torsia Hoya can live for decades. Some specimens have been passed down through families for 50 years or more, treated as heirlooms. It needs very little water, stores moisture in its semi-succulent leaves, and blooms more prolifically when kept slightly root-bound and on the dry side. A pattern you've now seen repeated across this list. Certain Hoya species produce nectar-scented blooms that smell faintly of chocolate or vanilla. First-time owners rarely see that coming. Plant 17. Tillandsia ionantha. Air plant. No soil, no pot, no substrate of any kind. Tillandsia ionantha is a bromeliad that grows in nature attached to trees, rocks, and telephone wires, absorbing every molecule of water and nutrition it needs through tiny scales on its leaves called trichomes. There is no root system to manage, no soil composition to get wrong, no drainage hole to worry about. You water it by submerging it in room temperature water for 20 to 30 minutes once a week, then turning it upside down to drain before setting it back in place. Before it flowers, it undergoes a dramatic color shift. The inner leaves turn vivid red or pink as the plant signals its reproductive cycle. After blooming, it produces offsets called pups, which can be separated to start new plants. Display it in a terrarium, mount it on driftwood, or place it on a shelf. It doesn't care. Plant 18. Monstera adansoni, Namschin monkey mask plant. While Monstera deliciosa has dominated interior design for years, its lesser-known relative does something more interesting, as Monstera adansoni produces leaves covered in multiple oval holes, called fenestrations, that form a dramatically different pattern from the edge-split leaves you already know. And here's the part that's genuinely unresolved. Scientists still debate why these holes exist. The leading theory is that they allow wind and heavy tropical rain to pass through without tearing the leaf. A newer hypothesis suggests the holes allow dappled sunlight to fall through to lower leaves in the canopy. Neither theory is fully settled. The plant itself, however, is entirely manageable, faster growing than Deliciosa, more compact, and significantly easier to root and maintain as a beginner. Plant 19, Discidia rucifolia. Million hearts. Plant Discida is a genus most gardeners have never encountered, and it's one of the most fascinating in the epiphytic world. Discidia rucifolia, known as the million hearts plant, produces tiny, perfectly formed heart-shaped succulent leaves along trailing, wire-thin stems, cascading in overlapping layers that build into something genuinely extraordinary at scale. It grows on tree bark in Southeast Asia, storing moisture in those small leaves and tolerating drought, low humidity, and infrequent feeding without complaint. The broader Discidia genus takes things further. Discidia major produces hollow inflated leaves called domatia, or anthouse leaves, in which colonies of ants live and deposit waste that feeds the plant from the inside. The million hearts variety has no ants. Why but knowing the family history makes it plant 20. Platycerium, bifurcatum, staghorn fern. We're closing the list with the most visually dramatic plant of all 20. Platycerium bifurcatum is a fern that doesn't go in a pot. It mounts on a piece of wood and hangs on your wall. It produces two completely different kinds of fronds: flat, rounded brown basal fronds that grip the mounting surface and collect falling organic debris, which naturally feeds the plant, and the forked, velvety, silver-green antler fronds that give it its name and make it one of the most sculptural living objects you can put inside a room. In its native Australian and Southeast Asian habitat, these plants grow directly on the trunks of large trees and can span several feet across. You water it by soaking or misting the board. There's no repotting. It grows slowly enough to stay manageable for years. And it is, without question, a piece of living art. 20 plants in, and not one of them requires you to be an expert. If any plant on this list genuinely surprised you, tell me in the comments which one. That's how we know what to cover next. And if you found this useful, subscribe. We do this every week. The next video covers exactly how to arrange plants like these into a layered indoor ecosystem that looks intentional, even if you're figuring it out as you go. See you there.